Hello and welcome to Reason News. The U.S. Senate is set to take up President Donald Trump's sweeping budget bill this week, a massive piece of legislation that encapsulates the administration's core domestic priorities, from tax cuts and immigration to healthcare and federal spending. The bill, already narrowly approved by the House, faces an uncertain path in the Senate amid strong Democratic opposition and growing dissent among key Republicans. The Senate reconvened in Washington on Monday with President Trump's so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. Senate Republicans are racing to deliver the bill to the president's desk by July 4th, marking the first major legislative test for Majority Leader John Thune and the new Republican majority. The bill, which passed by the House by just one vote, is the centerpiece of President Trump's second-term agenda. But with only a slim majority in the Senate, Republican leaders can afford to lose just 3 votes before the bill fails. The legislation is vast, spanning more than 1,000 pages. The key elements include making permanent the Trump-era tax cuts set to expire at year's end, major new spending on military and border security, significant cuts to Medicaid, and modifications to the Affordable Care Act, which the Congressional Budget Office estimates could result in 10.7 million fewer Americans using Medicaid or the ACA marketplaces, a $4 trillion increase in the federal debt ceiling, and reforms to federal student loans, including a new income-based repayment plan and changes to Pell Grant eligibility. Here's a video from CBS News.
The bill would enact several of President Trump's legislative priorities and include cuts to Medicaid and food stamp programs, as well as deeper spending cuts. However, some GOP senators have expressed concerns over this bill because of those massive cuts. Congressional correspondent Nicole Killian joins us now from Capitol Hill. And Nicole, where do things stand on the budget bill as we start the week?
Well, basically now it's the Senate's turn, and they are picking up the baton from the House. Of course, we saw this marathon session in the House that went on for many hours with different committees kind of working through various portions of the bill. Ultimately, the House cleared this reconciliation package by just one vote early in the morning, right before they recessed for the Memorial Day holiday. So now that Congress is back in session following that holiday recess, the Senate will be taking up this measure. But some Republican senators have already expressed a desire to change some components of this package, whether it's concerns they have expressed about the Medicaid portion of this package, whether it is potentially enacting more spending cuts because they don't think it goes far enough in terms of dealing with the issue of the debt and the deficit. That being said, Leader John Thune is still confident that this package will be able to get the votes that it needs, and he still would like to get the package cleared on his side of the Capitol by the July 4th.
The Trump administration calls the package a once-in-a-generation opportunity to cut government spending and drive economic growth. Despite Republican control, the bill's fate is far from certain. Several GOP senators, including Rand Paul of Kentucky and Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, have voiced strong opposition to the current version, citing concerns over Medicaid cuts and the impact on the national debt. Senator Paul, a leading fiscal hawk, insists the bill's $320 billion in new spending outweighs the cuts achieved so far, and he is demanding deeper reductions. Senator Johnson claims there are enough GOP senators ready to halt the process until the White House gets serious about deficit reduction. On the Democratic side, opposition is unanimous. Democrats argue the bill's tax cuts and social program reductions would increase inequality and hurt millions of Americans. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the bill would reduce outlays by more than $1.5 trillion over 10 years, meeting the reconciliation target for spending reductions. However, the same analysis projects the bill would add about $3.1 trillion to the national debt, which now stands at nearly $37 trillion. Some critics warn that true figure could be much higher if economic growth falls short of projections. Nobel laureate economists have warned that the bill's large tax cuts, combined with cuts to Medicaid and food stamps, would increase inequality and weaken the U.S. economy. One of the bill's most contentious elements is its overhaul of healthcare. Republicans are seeking modifications to the Affordable Care Act that would not dismantle its marketplaces of Medicaid expansion, but would sharply reduce eligibility and funding. Critics say this could lead to life-threatening consequences for millions. The bill also proposes major changes to federal student loans, introducing a new income-based repayment plan and altering Pell Grant eligibility. Borrowers with loans issued before July 2026 could keep their current plans, but future borrowers would be limited to two options: a revised standard plan or the new repayment assistant plan. Any changes made by the Senate must go back to the House for approval, where Speaker Mike Johnson faces his own balancing act between hardliners and moderators. A critical component of the bill is the $4 trillion increase in the federal debt ceiling. The Treasury Department has warned that Congress must raise the limit by the end of July to avoid a potentially catastrophic default. Republican leaders are under pressure to deliver a bill to President Trump by July 4th, but the path is fraught with procedural and political obstacles. For President Trump, passage of the bill would be a signature legislative victory, cementing his second-term agenda. The White House insists the bill will save $1.6 trillion over 10 years, the largest savings in U.S. legislative history, according to Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. However, Trump has publicly called out dissenting senators, warning that their voters will know about it if they oppose the bill, and urging party unity. The Senate is expected to debate, amend, and vote on the bill over the coming days. With only a narrow margin for error, every vote counts. Should the Senate pass a modified version, the bill will return to the House for final approval before heading to President Trump's desk. The outcome will shape the nation's fiscal policy, healthcare system, and social safety net for years to come. We will continue to bring you updates and expert analysis as this historic debate unfolds. Until next time, stay informed, stay updated, and stay curious.